Okay, let's dive right into something quite chilling today. We're opening up some source material about a figure from the 16th century, someone accused of just absolutely shocking crimes.
Yeah, what we have are excerpts from a historical print. It's a document that lays out the alleged life and, well, the alleged acts of a man named Simeon Fleischer.
And our mission really in this deep dive is to unpack this account, pull out the key details, and some are pretty disturbing, but crucially, understand what this specific source is telling us, especially, considering the time period it comes from.
hmm
It's a journey into a darker corner of history for sure, but also into the challenge of how we even know about the past.
So who was Simeon Fleischer, according to this print, anyway? He's described as a wool weaver, born in Fulda in the Holy Roman Empire, and it says he was executed actually in Neustadt in Weinstrasse in 1581.
And, well, the staggering accusation this document makes, it claims he was a German serial killer in the 16th century and that he allegedly murdered 19 wives.
19. Now, before we get any further into the specifics of how the print describes these crimes, we absolutely have to talk about the source of this information. It's essential.
Okay.
This whole story, as it's presented here, comes from confessions, and confessions that the document itself explicitly states were, and I quote, extracted under torture after he was caught in 1581.
Right. Okay. So knowing that the foundation of this account is information gained under torture, that immediately puts a huge question mark over everything, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A massive one.
It means we're reading a story the source wants us to believe, or maybe even a story the subject, Fleischer, felt he had to tell under duress, not necessarily, verifiable fact.
Exactly. So, with that huge caveat in mind, let's look at the pattern of alleged crimes this print describes. The text details a pretty horrifying routine.
Okay.
He would supposedly marry women, often it seems, targeting them for their money, or maybe their possessions.
And the marriages, according to this account, were incredibly brief, like shockingly brief.
Yeah.
The print gives durations like less than 20 weeks sometimes, less than 4 weeks. Even down to just days, 12 days, 11 days, 7 days.
The alleged goal seems pretty clear from the text.
Yeah.
Get whatever wealth they had and then move on quickly.
And after getting their money, or, well, spending it, the print claims he'd murder the wives.
Yes. It even mentions him selling their clothes afterward.
Hmm.
And it provides this long, detailed list of these alleged acts, spanning numerous towns and regions across the Holy Roman Empire.
It really does. I mean, we could sit here and list every single alleged victim and location mentioned.
Oh, it's quite a list. Marburg, Frankfurt, Miltenberg, Würzburg.
But honestly, it gets a bit repetitive, maybe even hard to follow after a while. I think the key thing here is the pattern the source describes and the sheer scale of the alleged crimes.
I agree. Instead of reciting the whole list, maybe let's just pull out a few specific examples from the text that really illustrate this chilling alleged pattern it sets out.
A good idea.
Okay, so it claims his first wife was in Marburg. Says she was a virgin, had an inheritance of 160 guilders. He supposedly murdered her after the money ran out, which was in less than 20 weeks, then sold her clothes.
Grum. And then there's the account of a baker's maid in Miltenberg.
Yes, that one. Allegedly killed her in the woods near Tauberbischofsheim after just 12 days together. The print even notes the sums of reward of 5 guilders, sold her clothes for 11. Very specific details.
Details which, again, came from that tortured confession, supposedly.
Precisely. Another really striking example from the text involves a rich widow in Wissemberg. The print alleges she gave him much money, and he then murdered both her and her daughter in a forest near another woman's place, a daughter of someone named Wagner.
Wow. The level of detail is something else, and the text follows this pattern right up to the end, right? His alleged final marriage.
It does. It claims his last marriage was to a tailor's maid in Neustadt and der Feinstrasse. Lasted only 7 days. He murdered her, allegedly, but this time he was caught red-handed, as the print puts it, and arrested. It was in 1581.
So if we tally up the numbers, the print attributes to his confession the one extracted under torture.
Right, after days of it, apparently.
It states he claimed he had married 31 women in just 6 years.
31 marriages, yes, and murdered 19 of them. The text does mention some slight confusion in counting, like whether the daughter counts towards the marriage total, but the core claim reported from the confession is 31 marriages, 19 murders, and it gives locations for most.
Okay. And the print, it doesn't hold back on describing his supposed execution either.
Not at all. It says it took place on January 18, 1581 in Neustadt and der Weinstrasse, where he was caught, and the description is, well, it's incredibly brutal.
How so?
Impaled, torn to pieces with red-hot pliers, hands and feet pinched off. Just horrific stuff. The print claims this whole process lasted 3 days.
3 days. Ugh. Okay, so that's the story. Vivid, gruesome, detailed, as told in this one specific historical print.
Exactly. And this is where we really have to step back and, put on our critical thinking hats. Evaluate the source itself, because this isn't some neutral court transcript we're reading.
No, it's a printed document from the time, a piece of popular media, perhaps?
Probably possibly. And as you mentioned earlier, this particular print titled Dryerly Newspaper, it's undated, unpaginated, probably made shortly after 1581.
And crucially, there's no clear indication of who printed it or exactly where, right? Just a claim it was a reprint from Basel.
That's right. And apparently the only known copy that survives today is held in the Jena University Library, so it's quite a rare piece.
And it's also interesting that this same print includes other stories, right? Not just Fleischer.
Yes, that's another key bit of context. It includes murder ballads and accounts of other figures supposedly executed around the same time, 1581, like a Christman Jennifer Tanga.
Jennifer Tang?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the one who allegedly confessed to, like, an insane number of murders?
An absolutely astounding number, 964 murders. And another figure named Peter Nyers, who supposedly confessed to 250.
Wow. Okay.
And the source material we looked at notes that these other two, Jennifer Tanga and Nyers, their stories were much more widely retold, became much more famous than Fleischer's. He remained relatively obscure, it seems.
That context feels really important, doesn't it? Putting Fleischer's story 19 murders alongside figures whose alleged victim counts are just, well, they sound almost fantastical, 964.
Exactly. It strongly suggests this print might belong to a genre of sensationalized crime reporting, or maybe even, popular entertainment for the time. Gruesome entertainment, but entertainment nonetheless.
So how do historians approach these kinds of sources?
Well, historians who study these early modern prints, like Joy Wiltonberg, they look closely at this gray area, especially accounts based on confessions obtained through torture. Wiltonberg offers a few possibilities for where stories like Fleischer's might actually come from.
Okay, what are they?
Well, one possibility is straightforward. The crimes could have been real, or at least partly real. But based on the surviving evidence or lack thereof, we just can't verify them today. The trail's gone cold, documents are lost, that kind of thing.
Plausible. Okay, what's possibility number 2?
Second, and this seems highly relevant to Fleischer's case, given the explicit mention of torture,
Right.
is that the confessions were extracted under torture. And as we know, information you get that way is notoriously unreliable. People might confess to anything just to make the pain stop. So it makes it impossible for us, looking back centuries later, to determine actual guilt or innocence based only on those confessions.
Makes sense. And the third possibility Wiltonberg raises.
That the entire account, the crimes, the victims, maybe even the figure of Simeon Fleischer himself, could be entirely fictitious.
Really? Just made up.
Potentially. Created purely for dramatic effect, for entertainment. A shocking story for a 16th century audience hungry for sensational, maybe morally instructive tales.
So this is really the crucial takeaway for you, the listener, isn't it? Based on the single source we have and all the context surrounding it, the torture, the other sensational stories in the print, it's genuinely unknown whether Simeon Fleischer actually existed, as described, whether he committed any of these horrific acts, or even if he was executed in that brutal way. The print presents it as fact, but the historical evidence just isn't there to confirm it. It's impossible to know for sure.
Right. So what does this story, this chilling narrative from the print, coupled with all this uncertainty about where it came from, what does it tell us?
Good question.
Well, on one level, it does offer a fascinating, if pretty grim, glimpse into the kinds of crime and punishment that were being written about in the 16th century. The details, even if questionable, they reflect certain anxieties, maybe certain realities of that time.
Yeah, like the dangers of travel, vulnerability of women, especially those with property, the brutality of the justice system.
Exactly. But perhaps more importantly, this deep dive really serves as a powerful reminder of the challenges we face when trying to understand history.
How so?
When our main sources are things like these sensationalized prints, possibly based on confessions extracted under duress, well, how do we approach them? How much weight can we give them?
Simeon Fleischer's story, as told in this document, it kind of becomes a case study in historical uncertainty, doesn't it?
Right.
And the absolute need for critical engagement with sources from the past.
It really forces you to question everything you read, especially from periods where the standards of evidence, proof, and publication were so different from ours. You can't just take it at face value.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive then, we've looked at the incredibly vivid, incredibly horrific story of Simeon Fleischer as it's laid out in this one particular historical print.
Yeah, the alleged pattern.
Right.
Marrying women across numerous towns, murdering them, usually for money, the claimed number of victims 19, and those gruesome details of his reported execution.
But, and this is the big but, we've also placed that narrative firmly within its crucial context.
Absolutely. This account stems from a source that explicitly mentions torture-induced confessions. It's found in a print that also included other highly sensational, possibly fabricated, tales with astronomical body counts.
And historians approach this document with, let's say, significant skepticism, emphasizing that the factual basis of Fleischer's story is deeply, deeply uncertain.
It's that stark contrast that really lingers, I think. You have these compelling, specific, almost nightmare-inducing details of the alleged crimes in his death.
Yeah.
And you set that against this profound historical doubt about whether any of it is actually true, or how much of it might be true.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. This story, whether it's a factual historical record, a partial truth twisted by coercion and the desire to sell prints, or just a complete work of fiction designed to shock,
Whichever it is.
it nonetheless survived for centuries in this printed form. What does the popularity, or even just the mere existence of a tale like this, tell us about the stories people craved, shared, and maybe even believed back in the 16th century?
And maybe more relevant for us today. How should we, armed with a more modern understanding of historical evidence and critical thinking, approach accounts from the past that are as gripping and detailed as they are fundamentally questionable? Something to definitely ponder.